track there, Let It Bleed, from the album Let It Bleed, 1969. One of my favourite tracks of all time there, one of my favourite albums of all time. Anyway, right, so we're going to be talking about some news stories from this week. The first story is the odds of, well, obviously it's a festive show, so the odds of White Christmas have been slashed apparently to odds on. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to ask you the listeners and the guests in the studio, why do we go on about the snow? Why do we go on about a White Christmas so much, so heavily in the press and on the news? I remember when I was a child, I think I had about one or two, and then all of a sudden we had loads all at once. Why do we go on about it when it actually does happen? All we do is complain about it and start looking at the cynical side. Is that just typical Britain? Do we always look at the the other side of things? Do we always just complain because that's in our nature? And also, how come other countries like Russia, Canada, Greenland, Iceland, they all seem to get by? How come Britain comes to a standstill whenever we have a few snowflakes? We're also going to be talking about some other stories as well, but I wanted to open it out. But before we do, obviously, if you've got any thoughts on this or any of the topics that we do bring up this evening, the phone number is 0161 660 0545, and the email is studio at manchesterradioonline.com. That's studio at manchesterradioonline.com. As usual, the Manchester Radio Online is all one word. Don't matter how many weeks I've been here, I still need to look at the sign. So I wanted to ask our guests, well, in fact, what I need to do really is introduce everyone first. We'll start from right to left. So we've got Duncan from Survivors Manchester. Do you want to introduce yourself and say hello, and if you've got any thoughts on the White Christmas that we probably are going to have?
Sure, okay, yeah. Evening. I'm Duncan, and I'm the Service Director for Survivors Manchester. We're a charity in Manchester that supports male survivors of sexual abuse and rape. Mm-hmm. White Christmas, I think what we are in love with is the idea of a Hollywood Christmas. The Miracle on 34th Street, A Wonderful Life. We're in love with that black and white, romantic snowfall on the ground. Everyone's got log fires. I'm in love with that idea. I've got central heating, and it just doesn't, it doesn't work out like that. The practicalities is that wet feet. The bus is swimming with water where the snow's melted. Transport doesn't work, we've not got enough grip, and so on and so on and so on. It's the idea, it's the romanticism of White Christmas that I think we're in love with.
So the second part, why do you think that other countries are able to get by, whereas we do seem to come to an absolute standstill? Every time there's a few drops of snow, all of a sudden the country collapses.
Sure.
Businesses, no one can get to work, and all this.
Because we, because we have about a month of snow in 12 months in a year, whereas Russia, Greenland, those sorts of places, they have it 6-7 months. They're prepared for it. We should really be prepared for water, for rain, the after effects of snow, the melting, the slush.
But we know, though, don't we? I mean, especially in the last few years, we seem to have had a lot of it. We know that we should have a backup of sand, we should have a backup of salt, but there seems to be this delay every time. It always seems to be the same stories we always get. What about yourself? We've got the two Bryans. We've got. Do you want to introduce yourself again? We'll start with Bryan M.
Yep, Bryan Melton. I've been, nice to be back on the show. So I was on the very first one. I haven't had a chance to get back since. So hello to everybody. I'm from his sins, I suppose, an actor, a poet, betting in Panto in Manchester at the moment. Might talk more about that later.
Yep.
But Christmas. So White Christmas. I agree. We're all in love with this romantic version, but the truth is we don't get that much snow. We can't. As a country, we can't afford the sort of investment in the sort of equipment that's necessary to deal with it effectively. But also, I don't think as individuals that we necessarily are prepared for it. I remember when I was a child, we did have perhaps a lot more snow than we've had over, until the last couple of years at least. And I remember cars driving around with chains on their wheels. They didn't get stuck. They were prepared. I tried last year we got the snow. I tried to go and get some grit sold out, of course. Should have thought ahead, had some in. It's that sort of thing, isn't it?
Great British surprise, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh dear.
It's coming, and then all of a sudden, whoops.
Oh dear, we know it's going to snow. Oh dear, it's here. What am I going to do about it? Haven't got anything. And I think that's the problem. We're not prepared as a country, but we're not prepared as individuals either. And there's a lot more we can do as individuals. for things like getting to work. As I say, snow change, ideal.
Is it a bit of an excuse, do you think? Do we secretly love it when we hear that all the roads are closed and we get an extra day off?
Yes.
Yeah, of course,
of course we do. Of course
I
we do.
know. I know from past experience with my little girl that as soon as they hear, and all the teachers are just the same. As soon as they hear it's a snow day, it's a celebration. And when you see these people on TV saying, "Oh, we're devastated that the children are missing out on a day's education," or load of nonsense.
But
Everyone loves a day off.
I must admit that's the thing that's changed. I remember the rule at our school was if you lived within 3 miles, didn't matter whether the buses were running or not, you walked and you got there. A couple of drops on the ground now, and the schools are closed for a fortnight.
I've got a vision of Jack Nicholson at the end of The Shine. You know, where he's sat there and he's a frozen icicle, and that's the last thing you see. Probably a few pupils you went to school with there. Brian Branche, another Watershed, a Watershed regular now. What are your thoughts, Brian?
I empathise with Brian M because we're of that kind of age where I was a service engineer covering the home counties region and never got stuck because we put chains on our tyres, called out 2-3 in the morning. Yay, roads were covered in snow, but we carried on. Not the fuss as we have today, but I'd like to hibernate.
Yeah. Well, I've been saying that a lot recently, actually. I think it's a natural instinct that we've got, and one thing I would be a big supporter of is that if the whole country shut down for, say, 3 months of a year, and then we maybe had to do a 6-day week for 9 months, or whatever we do to make it back.
Cameron, are you listening?
Yeah, do a 16-hour day, but 3 months of the year, I reckon December, January, February, let's all have them off. Let's keep our nuts together. And let's all get warm and snuggly. There's no innuendo there, by the way. Although we will be talking about innuendo when we do talk about Brian's Cinderella very, very soon. Another story from this. Oh, by the way, sorry, Claire, I didn't ask you. Claire, do you want to introduce yourself and tell us what you think of the weather? Do you love a good white Christmas, or are you not bothered either way? Is it just it's a bit of fun anyway, regardless? Or do you like this, like Duncan was saying, this romantic ideal, this It's a Wonderful Life, Bedford Falls, sat in front of the fire while the snow's falling outside?
I've got a story to tell on that one, actually.
Oh, go on.
But just to introduce myself, first of all, my name's Clare, and I work as Young People's Project Worker for a charity called the Care Leavers Association, which is a network of people who've been in care, young people up to right through to adulthood. Anybody who's been in care of all ages can access the service, access the charity to support, to access peer support. So, on the Christmas front, well, I have a story from Chorlton, which was
nice
last
part
year.
of the world.
Last year, where we had literally a competition down one road of snowmen, which I just loved. I just loved the competition and the spirit. So yeah, I'm all for the snow.
It does make a difference, I think.
Yeah.
I think this Christmas is a little bit extra special when you've got a nice little bit of snow there, just to get everyone in the mood. The second story, I've actually got another story, which is, but I suppose I can't decide whether it's funny, tragic, or a bit disturbing. So I might save that to the end. So what we'll do is we'll do what they normally do in the news. You start off with something neither here nor there, then something a bit serious, something else interesting, then something funny at the end. So we'll try and work that out. We'll try and do it that way. Next story I'm going to go to. Schools Minister Nick Gibb. He says that British children are growing up in a celebrity-dominated materialistic world. Things like the X Factor, they've got a Get It Now culture, and also young people now are sort of being given the idea that as soon as they walk out of school, they're going to either be a footballer, a model, a singer, a dancer, and of course, if they get offered a job in McDonald's, which is nothing wrong with that, a job's a job, they're going to turn it down and think it's beneath them, that kind of thing. And that's one of the things that contributes towards this NEETs mentality. We've got this not in education, what is it now? Education, employment, training, or school. That's what it is, and that's what NEET stands for. Has anyone got any opinions on that? Would you agree with the Minister Nick Gibb? Are we obsessed with celebrity?
Yeah, I do. I completely agree. Before I went down the road of training to become a therapist, I worked in the theatre, and I remember working auditions where we'd have a massive big West End show. The first time Phantom ever came out of the West End, or or Cats or, you know, the big Andrew Lloyd Webber shows, and we'd have open auditions, and people would come because they had spent years and years honing a talent to be. They trained to be a dancer. They trained their voice. They had a skill, and they, you know, acting, singing, dancing, and they honed it over many years, and then wanted to use it, not just trip out of whatever school someone's been to, and then tip up on Britain's Got the X Factor talent thing, and then just expect to be famous. People, you know, young people coming out of schools and into projects, you know, and with this whole idea of wanting to be famous. I've on any of these programs, I have never heard somebody talk about, you know, they want to show people their talent for a guitar, a musical instrument. It's always this straight away famous, and, you know, famous isn't a talent.
Well, this guy, by the way, and I don't want to go off on a tangent. I think I agree with what he says, but then he starts to blame, for some reason, he lays the blame at Steve Jobs' feet, saying that we've got he says we had the iPod, the iMac, the iPad. He says it's all I, and we have these gadgets where everyone's got to go for the next thing, and it's all about image, it's all about we want the next thing, want the new thing. I see where he's going. I wouldn't necessarily blame it all on
really
Steve Jobs.
lame.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame it on Steve Jobs, but I think he's in the right direction, but he's aiming at the wrong target. I think consumerism in general is well, it's a favourite topic of this show. We always come across it at one point or another. Consumerism is something that is dragging us down in all respects, and consumerism and this search for instant fame is something that goes hand in hand. And it's funny enough, you see, you used to be an actor, or once
No, it wasn't an actor. I worked promoting shows.
Yeah.
So I was right in the middle of, you know, helping shows develop and become big shows.
So you've worked within the industry.
Yeah.
Definitely need to stay in touch with you after the show. We've also got both Bryans. Both Bryans are both actors. We're going to talk to Bryan Melton very soon. Again, as I said earlier, we're going to talk about his show Cinderfella, which is playing at the
Dance House.
At the Dance
House Theatre.
Dance House Theatre in Manchester. And we'll be talking about that in a second, but we've also got Brian Branche, of course, who, apart from being a priest, a boxer, an engineer, an RAF pilot, also who's dabbled on the stage.
I wasn't a pilot, I was just an engineer.
Oh, you're just an engineer in the RAF. Sorry,
Yeah.
Brian, sorry. And there was me saying I wanted to write a biography about you. And that would have been the first mistake.
I'd have been shot down.
No, you probably would have been thinking about ethereal things, wouldn't you? You wouldn't have had your mind on the job. You've been a bit too
That's right.
spiritual,
Yeah.
a bit too close.
Hey, no, look, I'm not too spiritual. I'm very earthy, but my head is also in the air.
The best place for it to be sometimes, Brian. I won't like my hair to be my hair.
Yeah.
I haven't got any hair. My head to be anywhere else. That was a Freudian slip. But yeah, what do the Bryans and what do Clare think about this desperate urge that people in Britain seem to have? I don't know whether it's a uniquely British thing, but it seems to be. I think Britain and America seem to have that same kind of thing where we want this instant acclamation. We've not achieved anything. We're nobody unless we're known. We're nobody unless we're famous. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree with that entirely. I mean, I have a nephew of that sort of age range, and that's his only ambition, or seems to be. You know, he wants to be famous. He was actually people like Sonny go through Facebook looking for images, and he was actually contacted by Sonny for the look. He'd got the face, and they were going to take him on. Then they were prepared to offer him, you know, quite a considerable amount of money to sign on, which may have led to nothing, but it would have meant he would have had to give up his A levels. He would have had to give up college and everything like that. But he was very, very tempted, and there were just a couple of things, you know, that it didn't actually materialise. But that's what he wanted when it was offered, and but it. He has friends, and they all see themselves as these potential little celebrities. They've got to have the best things. They won't walk out in a pair of sunglasses unless they're Ray-Bans. They have to be seen. And it's absolutely frightening, actually. I do find it frightening because there's absolutely no merit behind them. You know, I agree. People used to work for this. I'm working with two guys at the moment who've just come out of theatre school or are just about to, and these are incredibly talented lads. Really, really talented. And but they're working at it. They really are working at it, and they don't expect anything instantly. My nephew and his friends, they expect to be discovered tomorrow. And I actually auditioned for Britain's Got Talent on one occasion. I sort of said, I could do that after about the third or fourth glass of Shiraz. And someone said, well, do it then. And so I put in the application. I did actually get an audition. I never got past the first stage. I either wasn't good enough or wasn't bad enough to actually appear on television. But I looked around and I did think, this is frightening. All these kids, all looking for this instant fame. And that's what most of them were there for. There were one or two, I think, like myself, who just wanted to show off their talent. I didn't want to go any further. I'd have liked to have got through to the televised auditions. I would have liked to have done that, but didn't at the end.
You've actually raised an important point there, Brian. Something I wanted to bring Clare in onto. Do you think that things like the X Factor, Britain's Got Talent, we see these people that they come through where they obviously are very, very, very deluded, and some of these people would appear to have a few problems.
Yeah.
And for want of a better word, they're being exploited.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Well, that's my stance on it for sure. I mean, I've got a real bee in my bonnet about the whole X Factor thing. And, in terms of my opinion on that, I just think that, for instance, in Manchester, I always went to Texas and, across Dallas for a month talking about how fantastic the music scene is in Manchester. I'm not sure I can say that anymore because, the real talent, it's got to be an entertainment, it's got to be exploited for financial reasons, for corporation reasons, for monopoly reasons, and it's not about the raw talent, it's not about the raw passion, it's literally about exploitation on every level, and that's not just with the vulnerable, that's with the ones who are talented as well.
But I believe that, when I was growing up, and up until maybe 10 years ago, you wouldn't find programmes on TV that sort of talked about the girl who's got two heads, or the boy that cannot sleep, and all these things. You get on Channel 4 now. Channel 4, which used to be an educational forum, used to be a channel where people used to be able to get a different type of look on the world, and now it just seems to be all these ridiculous, again, for want of a better word, freak shows. And it seems like things like the X Factor and Britain's Got Talent, it seems to have opened the door. It seems to have made it acceptable to laugh at someone.
Well, I agree with you, because as you were talking there before, Brian, and I was thinking, the X Factor and Britain's Got Talent and all these things get a real slagging off a lot in the press, etc. And I've just sat here and I've said that, and I kind of stand by it. But go back to Marty Kane and New Faces and stuff. There's always been talent shows. Shows, people with talent, and I think in one sense they're good in a way because it gives opportunity. But what you were saying, Claire, then is this instant gratification about and what you were just saying then about being able to laugh at people. That's what the way that people become exploited on it, I just think is appalling.
I think the difference with shows like Opportunity Knocks, they were genuine talent shows.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, of course, without Opportunity Knocks, we never would have had Jim Davidson.
That's
so.
right. Yeah. Well, that could that might not be something in its favour.
I was joking, of course.
But whereas the ones now, these are exploitation shows. They're nothing to do with talent at all. They're about making money for certain people.
Yeah.
I want to come and basically say what we have tried to do is to eradicate pain.
Yeah.
Okay? And that's living in a false world. Now, I want to go back to boxing, because a lot of my stuff that I've learned came from my time of boxing. If you wanted to box and you wanted to be popular and you just got into a ring, you'd get knocked out. What we have forgotten to do is preparation. And preparation is where talent is built up. So Adam was talking about, it's not the end of the journey, it's the journey itself that's exciting. Oh, sorry, Duncan. Sorry, Duncan.
That's all right. I've been called worse.
No, because I like Adam, and Adam was on the show last time.
We're waiting for Adam, and Adam's he's not come back to me.
But it is to do with preparation and to look at a long-term goal. Because if we want to be stars, we want to have talent, you actually have to have experience. You've got to be roughed up a bit. If I can leave the listeners with a kind of picture, say for Christmas, if you have this lovely doll in a box all dressed up, It looks good, but if you leave it there every Christmas and don't touch it, it's a doll. But you take it out, you throw it around, you get angry and you kind of rough it up, and it gets really grubby. Now that doll then has a personality.
I just hope that if the buddies are right, I never come back as a doll. Especially if it's one of yours, Brian. But I get the analogy now, that's very good, it's very good. And what is the most loved toys you have? Are the ones that have been worn, the ones that you love?
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Brilliant. We've got one more story to talk about, and then we're going to play a bit of music, and I'm going to be talking to Brian about Cinderfella. But the last story we're going to discuss this evening is obviously it's not today's story. It's from the week. It's something that fascinates me. Anyone that listened to our second show, which I think was Mr. Branche's debut, was about science and faith. And one of the things we were talking about was CERN in Switzerland. And now the people at CERN are saying that they believe that they're on the verge of discovering the Higgs boson particle, or the God particle. And I wanted to ask what people thought, or how people think that may affect our perceptions of things like science, of things like religion. Of course, we talked last time about things like time travel and all these nefarious subjects. But right at the root of it, of course, is to discover the Big Bang, what the proof of the Big Bang is, etc. What created everything, what kicked it off. So I wanted to start with Mr. Branche again. See what your thoughts are on the God particle.
For me, the God particle is what it says. It's a particle.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another particle of our knowledge. We haven't created anything. What we're doing is to investigate what's been created. Mm-hmm. And that's as far as we can go. What we cannot do is to go beyond what's been created. That's the unknown factor. We call that God. I'd rather call it there's no name. Mm-hmm. Because God defines something as though we can control. And hope to, at some stage, if we knew God, we can control God. I think that's an aspect of nature which we are never going to be able to get to. That's the mystery of life. And that's what excites me. That's what keeps me going, is that I'm never going to know all the things. But I'm glad that I have people who I can meet, have more knowledge than me, and guide me further in my journey in life. When I come to the end, well, who the hell cares? What's the mystery then?
But yeah, it's a topic which it fascinates me, and we did the whole thing about neutrinos as well. These particles that travel faster than the speed of light, which means that they leave before they arrive, so to speak, and it's mind-bending stuff. It's crazy sci-fi stuff which I can't get my head around. But it's again, I mean, obviously you've covered it there, Brian. You don't see it as anything that belittles anything. You see it as a part of something.
And what it will do, just like Newtonian physics did, was help us to develop engineering and things like that. Quantum physics, which led us into space. Now, if we have something which is even faster than light, do we have time travel? Is that possible? Do we have the foundation of saying this was the first brick of the Big Bang?
You see, someone who I describe myself as an agnostic, as in I'm not an atheist. I'm waiting for some kind of proof or some kind of evidence. I'm open-minded. I think to be definite on any one side is to leave yourself open to basically to being wrong. I want to base everything on facts and evidence, which normally would lead someone to be a scientific approach. But I think that's again can be a little bit misleading. I believe that if there is a God and there is a creator in that sense, then who are we to try and second guess and to try and understand? And just because we find these new things all the time which contradict what's written by men in a book, doesn't necessarily mean one thing or the other. It just means that human beings cannot comprehend the kind of magnificence of what the universe is. And to be honest, whether it is a man in the sky or it's science or whatever, it's absolutely amazing. And
Yes,
it's
I think
it's the most amazing piece of art you could ever consider.
That I think that is the beauty of it, that there is a total unconscious or even a consciousness in the ether, which is a mystery in itself, and that whatever science does, we should be thankful for it, because it helps to take away the ignorance of religion. You know, that Adam and Eve and things like that, they're lovely parables which gives us an example, but they're not fact. You know, if people believe that, well, good luck to them, but maybe them.
Well, before we play some music and then talk to Brian about Cinderfella, our resident emailer, Simon, has been in touch, and these are always a treat, so brace yourself. Last time, actually, I don't think I could read it out on air. I think it was too... hang on, let's see if we can just expand this somehow. I'm rubbish with Outlook. Right, okay, this is Simon, or as he's called himself now, hi from Yehulium Whitbanger. Hi. I was somewhat of a celeb back in the early 70s, and believe you me, it was short-lived. These were the days of Old Spice aftershave, Slade, nylon pants, cup of soup, dandruff and dog dirt on your shoes. I used to sing in a band called Yellow Dog. We had a one-hit wonder with Could I Stay One More Time. I was 30 at the time and spent every penny we earned on a holiday in Barbados. We thought we had it made. When the money ran out, we went back to our hometown of Ipswich and signed on Thatcher's dole queue. I had no trade or skills to offer. After sleeping rough for a year in a tent, I saw the light and became a Christian. I believe money and fame are irrelevant. The go-getters are so delusionised, if that's a word. I say move to Wales and climb many, many cliffs. Thank you as usual, Simon or Yehulium Whitbanger. If you want to ring in, it's always a pleasure, so feel free. Of course, 01616600545, studio at manchesterradioonline.com. Thank you once again, Yehulium / Simon. Let's play a bit of music, then we'll be talking to Bryan Melton about his upcoming pantomime.
Add us to your MSN, studio at manchesterradioonline.com.
That was Bob Dylan with Like a Rolling Stone. So we were just talking about the week's news, and before we get to Duncan, who's going to tell us about Survivors Manchester, I wanted to take this opportunity to speak to one of our favourite Bryans, Bryan Melton. Obviously, you're going to be appearing from Monday as Gaga on Cinderfella at the Dance House Theatre, Oxford Road, Manchester. Tickets priced £18.50, and it says at the bottom, please note this is an adults-only pantomime, definitely not suitable for children, the faint-hearted, and persons of a prudish nature. Do you want to tell us a bit more about that, Brian?
Well, yeah, that's exactly what it says. It is an adult pantomime, and it's aimed fairly and squarely at an adult market. Now, it's been advertised around Manchester, and it's been promoted quite strongly within the gay community, but this is not a gay pantomime. This is good adult fun. If you like good, clean filth, this is what this pantomime is about. If you're going to be offended, don't come. I mean, you could bring your maiden aunt, let's put it that way, providing A, she's not going to be offended, and B, you don't mind being cut out of the will. But apart from that, it's great. It was going to be the Good Fairy was going to be Shameless's Alice Barry Lillian from Shameless, but unfortunately that's not happened. We've now got Cat the Cookie Monster from Big Brother. You may remember the Thai girl who's absolutely barking mad.
Isn't she the one who used to go happy house? Happy
That's right. Yes, and she's absolutely barking mad. And I remember in Big Brother they said, this is all an act. Believe you me, it isn't. She's absolutely wonderful. She's a marvellous girl, a marvellous lady, but she's mad as a hatter and so much fun. And you really will enjoy the panto if you come and see her. So that's basically the concept of it. I'm playing one of the ugly sisters, Gaga, and we have some fun with the audience. The front row can look forward to an experience, let's put it that way. It's a very enjoyable thing. So if you want to get the kids out of the way, we've got pantos. You can go along to the Palace and you can take the kids along to the panto. But if you want a really good evening for yourselves, then this is the place to be at the Dance House.
Well, I was just going to say, going off the back of this flyer, Brian, see if I do this justice. I've not got the voice and elocution of you, but this is the story of poor Cinderella, scrubbing the floors and brushing the cellar. Everyone loves her, but what a big shock. You get in her knickers and find there's a...
Yeah, well, it rhymes anyway, yes.
Will Cinderella go to the ball? Will she marry the prince of her dreams? What is really under that frock? A modern-day twist to the classic fairy tale Cinderella, filled with comedy, dazzling costumes, two ugly old slappers, one of them's you. It's
No makeup required.
a nymphomaniac prince, tons of audience participation, and good old festive cheer.
Yeah.
And it also appear in Nixie used to be on Galaxy. We were just talking, and Galaxy's no more, is it?
No.
Yeah, see, I only listen to old music.
And a wonderful drag act called Miss Thunderpussy, who's been around the circuit for a long time. An international drag act.
Miss Thunderpussy, you
Miss
say?
Thunderpussy.
And that's definitely not a children's thing. That's...
Oh, it's definitely not a. We don't allow. we don't allow
It's not
underrated.
the new toy for Christmas, that.
I'm just
Yeah.
wondering, Miss Thunderpussy, yeah.
I mean, the basic concept is Cinderella doesn't turn up, and so we have to get someone out of the audience to play Cinderella, and we happen to have a drag queen in the audience, and that's how the show starts. But say, don't look at it if you see it advertised and you think it's this is a gay panto, whatever. It isn't. It's good, wholesome, filthy, adult fun. And there is no way that if you come in that theatre, you won't enjoy it.
Clever use of adjectives there, Brian.
I like Thunder Pussy.
Who can honestly say they don't, Brian?
So we look forward to seeing you there, and happy Christmas, boys and girls.
Yep. So yeah, it's December the 15th, obviously, which has just gone to January the 7th, but Brian's taken over the role of Gaga from this coming Monday. So if you want to see Brian in Cinderfella, get your tickets there. You can book them through the Dance House. You can also book them through Ticketline, keytickets.com. So there we go.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Brian. Right, Duncan.
Yes.
Going from one theatre impresario to a former theatre impresario. Would you like to tell us a little bit about what Survivors Manchester? I know you told us a little bit briefly before, but tell us a little bit about what you do.
Yeah.
What you aim to do.
Yeah.
And how, especially at this time of year, people that you try to support and look after, how they may be particularly affected. Obviously, because we're dealing with a time where it's thrown in front of us all the time that it's a time for families. It's a time for all getting together and all this. But of course, sometimes that's not as applicable.
Sure, absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's a really good point. That Survivors Manchester is we're a charity. We have been going for nearly 3 years now, and we achieved our charitable registration a week and 3 days ago. Not that I'm counting. So that was big celebrations within the organisation. We're a survivor-led organisation, and we support male survivors of childhood sexual abuse and rape, whether that is historic or whether that's current. We work very closely with a number of different organisations: St Mary's Sexual Abuse Referral Centre, Manchester Rape Crisis, Victim Support, and with the police. Our aim is to help males empower themselves to move forward and start making choices based on today and not yesterday, in order for them to move forward in life, in order for them to take back the power and control of their lives that was taken away from them during the crimes that were committed against them. We have a number of kind of support services. A lot of our stuff we do online. I'm going to plug our website, which is www.survivorsmanchester.org.uk. Lots of organisations have websites, and and I know when I worked in a theatre, websites were really, the online stuff was really just sort of about to start. And we used to do some online stuff for the purposes of it was free, it didn't really cost us anything. The online stuff that we do with Survivors Manchester is there for a purpose, and it's there because what research is telling us is that men don't really like to talk. We know, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 men sat in this room here, and I'm sure no one's going to disagree with me, and one female, Clare, that it's often is the case, that a man has to have his arm hanging off before he goes to the doctors. Men's health in this country is not that good, and I think what that's about, it's about the Britishness, it's about this stiff upper lip, it's about pull your socks up and get on with it. And that actually, that message that gets sent out there, what that results in is it results in men staying silent, and silence often will result in suffering. And what we do is we want to try and help people. We absolutely do not give people a voice. We help them find their own voice. And then they can move forward and start making choices, as I say, based on healthy things today and not based on the legacy of the past.
See, one thing I remember reading, well, I've read it a few times actually, and I don't have the statistics to hand, unfortunately, but I know that in the case of women, a very worryingly high percentage of women that are attacked don't go forward to the police because they're afraid that they're not going to be believed or they're embarrassed. Now, what we're talking about there as being a male, we don't talk about having a cold, we don't talk about feeling under the weather, we don't talk about being depressed.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. So, if you imagine how hard it is for a woman, of course, it's a terrifying thing to be able to go and talk about it. And unfortunately, so many of these scumbags are getting away with it because of that. But at the same time, abuse that's happening towards males, I imagine that number is off the scale in comparison.
I mean, the thing is, we don't know. We don't know. We don't really have. We haven't got in this country any single or multiple number of reports that say an analysis that say how many men in this country are affected by rape or sexual abuse. What we do know from some academic research is that approximately, and I think this, I treat this with as a kind of conservative estimate, is that 1 in 6 men, or 1 in 6 males, I should say, will have some form of unwanted sexual attention before the age of 18.
1 in 6?
1 in 6, yeah. Whereas with women, it's 1 in 3. Lots of academics would say that.
To be honest, that's a shockingly high number as well. 1 in 3.
Sure. Lots of academics would actually say that for women it's 1 in 2, and for men it's 1 in 4. But I stick with it. I stick with the research that's out there at the moment, and what we also know as well, our supporters at Greater Manchester Police, is that we know that on average, year on year, since '95, so since it was even legally possible in the eyes of statutory law for a man to be a victim of rape, that only happened in 1995.
So, sorry, just to interject there, so before 1995, if that happened, you'd have no legal recourse?
No. Before 95, there was no such stuff in statutory law books of a male being raped.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
If, as a man or a male, before 1995, if you went to the police and said, this happened to me...
Yeah, it wouldn't be classed as rape.
Unbelievable.
Sure. So it was the Andrews case in London.
So sorry again. That's you shocked me there. So does that also include children?
It was in the eyes of the law before the Andrews Richards case. It was impossible in the eyes of the law, in the black and white textbook law. There was no such thing as rape of a male. There was the act, but it wasn't called that. It was different. But since the Richards case in '95, the law's changed. It's still only a male that can rape because of the way that the law is written out. But what we know since then is that analysis of people that have come forward has been the number of people that's come forward in the analysis has grown year on year on year on year. I looked at it between 1995 and 2005 over a 10-year period, and the increase was something like 696% increase. Is that because more men are being raped? No, it's absolutely. I don't believe that. I believe what it is that society got a bit better at talking about it, and I think we got better at detecting it and investigating it. What GMP would say, would agree with now, is that for the number of cases that are reported in Greater Manchester, about 10% of that total number reports are male, and that really does fit with the sort of the national average. In fact, I can't remember the top of my head. It might be a little bit better. It might be a little bit better than the national average. So yeah, I think I think in Manchester we're really lucky. We have St Mary's Sexual Abuse Referral Centre, and it was the first abuse referral centre in the UK. It's the gold standard. We should be so proud of that. where not only men and women, but boys and girls and babies, they have a child suite there. They have a child advocate there. That they do some incredible work, and we should be so proud of that in Manchester, that we have this facility. In other parts of the country, they have to travel for miles to get to theirs.
We're going to speak to Brian in a second, but I just wanted to say, I mean, I'm quite taken aback. I had no idea how. Well, obviously, I knew it was a problem. I didn't know it was that so widespread and such an issue. But anyone that's listening now, if you've experienced anything like that, or you want to speak to anyone about anything like that, then feel free to obviously contact Survivors Manchester. What's the contact number again, Duncan?
You can do it two ways. You can have a look on the website, which is www.survivorsmanchester.org.uk, or you can phone us on 07919 246 267.
And of course, anyone that's, because there is still a stigma. Of course, there's a stigma about it. Is there anywhere that someone can go, say, obviously they can call anonymously, anything like that? Is there anywhere they can go to speak to someone? I'm assuming, I've not asked you, I should have asked you before the show, but people involved with it have got an understanding of it, I'm assuming, because a lot of people involved with it are experienced. So they can give them an insight, or that they can be more understanding than someone who's just really merely reading from a fact sheet or something like that.
I mean, everyone that's involved in Survivors Manchester has a great understanding of the issues. The most of the work I do most of the face-to-face work, and I'm a survivor myself, and I'm a qualified therapist as well. We work on, as I say, empowering people, but we work ethically as well. It's so important to make sure that the work that we are doing is in someone's own time, when they're ready, that it's ethical, and that we do our best to ensure that the person is feeling that what they're doing, they're in control of.
Right. So again, just to emphasise, anyone that has been affected, or anyone that feels that they need some support, contact Survivors Manchester. What was the place you were saying, St. Mary? Is that like you can just go in there?
St Mary's Sexual Assault Referral Centre. If anybody really, is dealing with stuff now, where something's happened to them, I'd always say to them, go to St Mary's. It doesn't mean that you have to speak to the police. It means that you can get the right support. And it doesn't necessarily just mean around forensic examinations. The aftercare is fantastic.
But again, I mean, you were saying possibly, 1 in 6. I mean, that's a very scary number. Anyone, regardless of being male or female, it's a scary number. But you always assume that, and this is what part of the stigma is we assume that you're less likely, or much less likely, to be a victim if you're a male, and obviously that's not the case. And anyone, please, obviously this time of year, we look at people and we see everyone smile, we see everyone's happy and enjoying themselves. If you've got something that you need to speak to someone about, especially if it's something that we talk about now, do try and seek help. Don't just let it build up, because that can lead you down the wrong path, and it can end up doing something which is going to harm a lot of people. So again, I'm going off on a tangent now, but I'm a little bit shocked, a little bit perturbed. It's quite shocking, really, these statistics that Duncan's provided. So thank you very much, Duncan. We're going to be talking to you again throughout the rest of the show. We've got over an hour left. But Brian, you had something you wanted to say?
Well, I'm so glad to have met Duncan today and to hear what he has to say, because this is something which has been overlooked so much. When I was walking the streets in North Shields, Percy, Maine, I picked up I wasn't soliciting, but 70 men who were unemployed, and there was nobody who knew what to do with them. I went to a church and said, I've got these men, can we have some space? No. If they were women with prams, yes. Nobody knows how to deal with men. There isn't the structure for it. So Adam, Duncan, I really do thank you on that basis.
Thank you.
When I was working in the East End, I used to go into gangland and the new gangsters, and they'd come and kiss me and hug me, because they could come and talk about their fears. Now, these were tough men, But they had the kind of fears you were talking about.
You know, I absolutely, Brian, believe that you give somebody a space.
Yeah.
You give a man a space and he will talk.
Exactly.
You give him the right condition to talk and
Yeah.
he will take his power back.
Yeah.
And yeah, do you know what? It's a subject that no one wants to deal with. But, you know, to coin a phrase, there absolutely is light at the end of the tunnel. I am the most privileged. I have the most privileged job that on a weekly basis I meet new people, that new men, new boys that have never spoken out, that do something, i.e. take a risk by sitting down in front of me or on the phone and telling me the biggest secret they'll ever carry, and the relief and the release of pressure is incredible. And these people go, you know, men go on to live a, you know, we were saying before what's normal, but a normal life.
I have found that when I contacted my femininity, you know, I'm fairly butch, aren't I? But when I contacted that, and I contacted that when I first went into the priesthood, because I've always been in a man's circle, you know, boxing and stuff like that. But having to go into hospital and hold a man's hand for the first time and be like a mother, because that's what you're doing, you're nurturing.
Sure.
You know, and women haven't got the privilege of that, but thank God they've got that instinct. But we both have. Women have that instinct to be the masculine, and men have the instinct to be the feminine. Now, if we can blend those two, our characters grow. So much.
I think that has to start with people talking.
Exactly.
It has to start with society allowing us to do that. There's always a soldier over the top. One person always has to go over.
Right, we'll go back to this in the next hour. But Bryan Melton, who was talking to us earlier, has got, well, I've said before, he's got a voice to die for.
Ooh, you are kind.
I know. Talking about getting in touch with your femininity, Brian, I do love your voice. So you're going to be reading us a poem.
Yeah.
A festive poem, because what we're going to do is the next hour, of course, what we're talking about now, we've been talking about things that are upsetting, things that can bring people down, but of course there's the other side of Christmas. And the other side of Christmas is that all of us, hopefully, regardless of what our circumstances are, what our history is, at this time of year especially, when we're coming close to the new year, is a chance to look forward and is a chance to be happy and a chance to grow. So hopefully if people can get some benefit from this evening, what we talked about the first hour, we're also going to move on as well. We're going to talk to Clare from the Care Leavers Association very shortly. But we don't want tonight just to be negative. We want it to be positive. And there are a lot of positives in what we've talked about so far, in about seeking help and speaking to the right people and helping ourselves most importantly. But what we're going to do is we're going to have Bryan Melton now. He's going to lighten the mood a little bit. He's going to read us a poem, and he's got to get home to Southport. So go ahead, Brian, it's all yours.
One thing I should just say, one thing I forgot to mention when I was talking about this wonderful pantomime at Cinderfella, is that we are also raising money for a good cause, and that's gay men fighting AIDS. So there will be raffle and things. We are using it as a vehicle to raise money for a very worthwhile charity. So if you get the chance, please do come and see us. Right, Christmas poems. I wrote this one years ago. So long ago I'm having to read it because I can't remember it. It's called Talking Turkey. I'm a turkey, I'm waiting for Christmas, though I'm not really sure what it is, but I've heard that it's quite an occasion and something I really can't miss. I'm told that there'll be decorations and presents stacked under the tree, but the reason I'm getting excited, the central attraction is me. They say that'll be all the trimmings and all kinds of food be produced. They keep mentioning someone called Paxo. Oh, I do hope he'll be introduced. They say that there'll be Christmas spirit and everyone full of good cheer. Oh, I do hope we have a good Christmas. And they asked me to come back next year.
ManchesterRadioOnline.com. Add us on Facebook. Go to facebook.com/ManchesterRadioOnline.
Fantastic as usual, Brian. This is Steely Dan. And after that, we're going to have Lynyrd Skynyrd, Sweet Home Alabama. I think we play that at least once a week as well. So Brian's got to go now. Thank you very much, Brian. That was wonderful. And
bye, boys and girls.
And we'll see you in the new year.
Hopefully, yes.
Sweet Home Alabama there by Lynyrd Skynyrd. Again, we play that at least once a week. Brian's just left after doing his stirring poem there. He's also left me a book of poems. He's left his coat. So so I'm going to have to keep that safe for him. If Mrs. Melton's listening to this in Southport, give him a quick ring now and say his coat's in the studio. He probably won't be able to get it now, but I will keep it safe for him. That's my promise. Anyway, we were just speaking to Duncan, and now it's time to speak to Clare from the Care Leavers Association. If you want to send us any emails, it's studio@manchesterradioonline.com. That's studio@manchesterradioonline.com. Manchester Radio Online, all one word. If you want to ring in, it's 0161 660 0545. Dale has emailed in to say that he's spending Christmas alone this Christmas after falling out with his family. So he's feeling a little bit down. Well, I don't really know what to suggest, to be honest. I've been there myself. I'm sure we've all been there when we've been feeling particularly down and feeling a little bit alone. The best thing we can suggest, or best thing I can suggest, is just, if you want to ring in, we'll have a chat with you, but I don't want that to sound exploitative. So the best thing to do maybe is just to try and reach out. There must be someone, hopefully there's someone that you can speak to. Someone who knows you, or someone in family. I mean, I don't know what the details are. I don't know who's fallen out with who, or what you've fallen out about, but these things are normally pretty petty and pretty minor. Obviously, without me knowing the full details, but hopefully, if you make the first move, you might be able to get something sorted out. So, wish you the best of luck, and try and have a lovely Christmas. And I hope you enjoy the show. But if there's anything you want to talk about, anything else, any thoughts you have, then please get in touch. And we'll see what we can do. Obviously, I'm not trained in giving advice. Clare is. Duncan does. But if you want to get in touch, then we're here to talk. But anyway, so once again, thank you very much for your email, Clare. Hello. You've been very quiet tonight because we've not really had much time to talk to you yet. Tell us a little bit about. I know you spoke a little bit before about the Care Leavers Association. Tell us what kind of work you're involved in. Tell us what the effects of Christmas are likely to be on the people that you work with, and also basically what your principles are, what your ideology is, and what the spirit of the organisation is.
Okie doke. So, as I said before, I'm Young People's Project Worker at the Care Leavers Association. We're a national charity. In fact, we've got a worldwide reach, and we have two major mechanisms of communicating with care leavers. We've got a website called Care Leavers Reunited, so it's over internet, peer support, and then we've also got over the phone we can offer advice and signposting on a day-to-day basis.
What signposting?
Well, we would signpost to organisations that can help. So we've got a good database of organisations that can help with various bits and bobs. We also act as an independent organisation that will give advice on legislation, so what people's rights and entitlements are. For those of you who just don't know what a care leaver is, a care leaver is somebody who's spent as a child time without their family in a placement such as foster care, children's home, or it could be in what we call kinship care. So, for instance, John Lennon would be what we would call in kinship care with his auntie.
That way, with a relative, yeah.
Yeah. So, where you're living with a relative that's not your main caregivers, your mum and dad. Most people, going on to what Duncan's organisation is all about, most people who go into care system in the first place, it's down to abuse and neglect. 62%, 1%, and this is to combat a common misconception, 1% is down to their own behaviour and their own faults. So it's predominantly things that have been done to them. So the nature of that, going on to your point about how that impacts on Christmas, that Christmas, because it's a time, inherently it's a time about people, families getting together, it can bring up those issues, those very often deep and often unsettled issues, and often about very close family members. Mum, dad, auntie, uncle can be, very upsetting, and often, young people and adults who we work with might not necessarily have any family that they can spend Christmas with, and it just might be particularly really, a kind of heart-wrenching time of year, really. So I suppose the case is with the people that I work with is that Christmas can be hard and it can really bring up issues, but your point of our organisation is there's lots of people who've had similar experiences, and it's very easy to feel isolated, and it's often very easy to feel like you're the only person who's been through these sorts of things. But believe it or not, myself included, you'll be surprised at the number of people that have got things that you can relate to, and that's what we're all about. Our charity's led by people who've been in care themselves. We're not social workers, similar to Duncan. We've got qualifications. However, we've also got the personal experience to go with it, and I think that's what it's all about, in the sense of you're able to put that branch forward and say, well, actually, I've been there myself, so I know what it's like, and that I think hopefully should give some comfort to people out there who might be listening that might have been through any of the experiences we discussed tonight, that they're not alone.
What are the contact details again for Care Leavers Association, Claire?
Okay, our website is www.carelevers.com, and our telephone number is 0161 236 1980.
You see, you've actually reminded me there. I didn't think I had any worthwhile stories for tonight, and I mean, to be honest, it doesn't really compare with what you're talking about, what Duncan's talking about, but it's still something that sticks in my mind. And it's, funnily enough, 20 years ago right now, because it was Christmas 1991, and it was just before. My mum was with a guy, stepdad at the time, who was a very, very violent man, a horrible man, and he. She managed to get a restraining order against him. I remember she went to see this solicitor, and she got into I'm not sure if it's still there, but it was in a Longsight area, and it was basically a battered wife shelter. And we were there would have been there over Christmas. And I'll never forget, I mean, this sounds terrible, but I was in my element in a way, because they had a little games room, and they had, they had balls, they had a little pool table and all this. And secretly, I was quite chuffed, because I was away from him, right? And I was loving it. I was getting loads of attention off the other women that were there and all this, and the other ladies. So, that's what you like when you're a kid, what about 10 years of age or something. So yeah, then I remember he'd been told that you got to stay out of the house, you're not allowed near the family, because his daughter, my sister, was with us as well. And we walked back home. I'll never forget, I watched The Shining when I got in, because it's Christmas, so all the films were on. Watched The Shining, then The Word, that says how long ago it was, and then all of a sudden, door bangs open, kicks the door in, walks straight in, goes, "Hi Tom," walks straight in, straight upstairs. Don't think anything happened that night, but just when you're talking about, like, of Christmas, it brings things up from the past. It's
Yeah.
And what you were just saying there, I'm sorry to just cut in, but pain is all pain is relative.
Yeah.
You saying it's not as bad as. Well, do you know what? It might be for you.
The guy was a monster. Yeah.
My point is your experience, my experience, Brian's experience, his life experience. I'm talking about Claire's experiences. We might all feel like oh, mine's not as bad as yours, or to an extent. I work with the idea of, do you know what? That's irrelevant. It's how it affects you today. That's what's important, and that's what we can do something about. For me and you, Tom, for instance, to sit here and talk about, mine's worse than yours or yours is worse than mine, it doesn't mean anything. But what we can do is we can look at, and this is the positive side of it, we can talk about how we got over it.
But you see, I always feel guilty, though, because my sister, who's a wonderful young lady, she's doing really well for herself, she suffered much more because it was her dad. So I always had support. I always had my granddad, I always had my dad, I always had these people that I could go to. But she never had that, you see. She had her auntie sort of thing who she'd see now and again. But I always felt like my mum suffered, because I remember when she was pregnant, he broke her arm and pushed her down the stairs. She was lucky to survive, and lucky for my sister that survived as well. So I was so fortunate. I mean, I never really suffered from the full force of it. Probably because the guy was a coward, and even though he was 6 foot whatever, maybe 12 stone soaking wet or whatever, he was a bit. I think he was probably scared of my dad, to be honest, and that's probably why I didn't suffer. But I always felt this guilt that I was relieved that I didn't have to suffer. Do you know what I mean? So I understand where you're coming from, that it's relative, but I also think that I'm just being very, very honest there, that
Sure.
I just feel that it could have been so much worse, and yet I feel bad about thinking that, if that makes any sense.
I can kind of see what you say as well in so many levels, in the sense that the work that I do, I often think, gosh, I've got extended family, I've got things there that I'm just like, wow, I had that in place, and it sounds awful, but there's always somebody, the saying, there's always somebody worse off than you.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of is a little bit like that in a sense, but very much so what Duncan's saying is that it is relative, and what is, awful to another person might be not so awful to the other person, but it's still relative. And
I've tried to explain it, and it's a poor analogy, I suppose, but I've tried to explain it to Georgia in the past. That's my little Georgia. I've said to her that, if someone's got everything in the world and they've got the perfect life, and then all of a sudden the car doesn't start, or the nail breaks, that to them is a tragedy.
Sure.
And also on the flip side of it is that somebody who has had, by normal standards, whatever normal is, a poor life and a bad upbringing and bad surroundings, bad people around them, to them, they don't even raise an eyebrow when they get beat or even worse happens to them. And that's the greatest tragedy of all, I think.
I was talking with Duncan during the break and Clare, that we need to look at language, in a sense, because what's happened to each one of us in our own life has happened to many of you, well, all your listeners. There's no one is exempt.
Sure.
And one of the things is, I'm talking about miracle, but that's maybe transfer that to surprise rather than miracle. That it's surprising that we all grow up to be adults, considering the experiences we go through. Now that is really surprising, and I feel that when we start to reach maturity, whatever that is, and normalization, again, whatever that is, I don't believe there is a normal setting. We're individuals, we're unique. Our experience is unique. And in sharing that, we are richer. It's when we don't share that, we become poor in what I call spirit, by sharing it. So when Cameron talks about the big society, we need to get away from the political implications of the big society. It's a big family. And in that, we're a big extended family.
Sure.
So whoever's text you in, basically, Christmas is a lovely symbol for family and togetherness, but it's also a devastating time of a period where most suicides are committed because of being alone. So for me, the symbol of Christmas is the people from the outside being brought in. And that's whatever big society is, we have to be able to provide that. How do we bring people in a loving sense, not that we are goodies or we're doing a goody-goody job, but how do we, with love, with care, with compassion, invite the stranger into our home? That's bloody scary.
Well, on a brighter note, Emily's saying she's going to spend Christmas with her boyfriend, and he's the best boyfriend in the world. So she's looking forward to a great Christmas with him and his family.
Happy Christmas.
So happy Christmas, Emily.
Christmas.
Well done.
Happy Christmas.
Also another one, not quite on the subject we're going about, but subject that I like to talk about, I'll talk about all day. Jazz, who is not a Christian. Would it be racist to assume Muslim?
Sorry?
Would it be wrong to say, if someone specifies they're not a Christian and they're called Jazz, would that be wrong to assume they're a Muslim?
It may be, because you need to find out who...
Well, yeah. Anyway, not that I'm saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, I just had this assumption in my
May
mind.
just like jazz.
Yeah, maybe. I just had an assumption in my mind. But what she's saying is, or he's saying, doesn't specify again, what Jazz says is that they love Christmas, one of the favourite times of the year, and the UK should be more proud of its faith and its heritage. and shouldn't feel like it needs to please everyone all the time. So there we go. So not a Christian, but a big believer in, I'm guessing, the ideals, like we're talking about here, Brian, the ideals and the spirit of Christmas.
Yeah.
And, I know a lot of people who, I think, to be honest, in this day and age, most people I know are probably atheists, but they still appreciate Christmas. And talking to, again, I always like to name drop, talking to James Sanders the other week in here, he was saying that he doesn't celebrate Christmas because he's an agnostic. And I don't understand why that's mutually exclusive, because to me, you don't have to, even if you don't have a faith or a belief or anything, Christmas is a time when people walk past strangers and say, Happy Christmas. And that's nice. Most of the time we ignore the people we walk past and we're just very cynical, and it's such a horrible world we live in a lot of the time, and we're bombarded with negativity. I just think that for 1 week out of the year, when we're nice to each other, you can't ask for more. You can't ask for more. Anyway, we got all deep then. I wanted to, any more emails, studio@manchesterradioonline.com. If you want to ring in, 01616600545. Of course, tonight is the busiest night, apparently, for the emergency services.
Mad Friday.
Yeah, Mad Friday, is that it?
Yeah, that was on the news before.
Yeah, it's the weekend before Christmas weekend. So I'm assuming a lot of people are out partying. Maybe that's where Adam is, actually. Now I put two and two together. That's probably where Adam is, actually.
Adam, are you there?
Adam's not there most of the time, but if you are listening, Adam, we miss you tonight, mate. Love you loads, and hope you're having a good night. But I wanted to mention some of the other organisations that people can get in touch with. I was hoping that the Salvation Army might have been able to get in tonight, but they were unable to. Obviously, the Salvation Army are another group who can help with all sorts of issues. People who are feeling lonely, people who are feeling depressed, people who've got substance issues. And if you wanted to speak to someone in the Salvation Army, that's 0161 682 0070. They're based on Oldham Road in Manchester. We've also got the Samaritans, another group that I was hoping to get in, 0161 236 8000. And Joe at Samaritans has said that they're going to try and come in the new year, as is, I've got his name somewhere, James from the Big Issue North is going to try and come in the new year as well. So look forward to meeting them. But of course, Samaritans, again, if you're feeling down, you're feeling like you're on your own at this time of year, there are people out there. Don't feel like there's any shame or there's any problem with you doing that. There's nothing wrong with that. At this time of year, it is the time of year to reach out and ask for help. I think that's what the main theme of what we're trying to get through tonight is, that there is always someone there when you need them. Okay, we're going to play a bit more music, then we're going to talk a bit more about Christmas, the origins of Christmas. We're also going to have our area of Manchester, which this week is Burnage, if we've got time, and we're going to talk about our sicko of the week, who this week is Herod. So here we go. We've got some Johnny Cash coming up, and then a little bit of Band-Aid.
ManchesterRadioOnline.com. Call 0161 66 00 545.
Of course, we've heard that many times over the last couple of weeks, but I actually love that song. I love it when Bono gets really into it. After the intro, and he goes, tonight, I love that bit. Brilliant. I was quite...
Can you sing that again?
No, I'm not singing that again. A couple of things to mention. Kelly's saying that she prefers New Year to Christmas. Thinks Christmas is much too commercialised, and it's a load of expense, and she has to spend time with people she doesn't like. Fair enough. I can't stand New Year, to be honest.
No, I hate New Year.
I hate New Year. I'm a big Christmas fan. But I wanted to mention before, because I'd forgotten actually, I was going to do it at the midway point. But I always like to go through the schedule for this week. As usual, on Sundays we've got Mike Royce. He does the Starburst show, which is it's Starburst Radio. It's where we've got all the TV, movie entertainment that's coming up. It's only a movie, film reviews, trailer parks. He also goes about video games, DVDs, all things like that. Brilliant if you... I'm a bit of a movie geek, so I love all that. TV, movie buffs, well worth listening in. On Mondays we've got Daniel Zupko has his Just a Ride show. Loads of great music there. Tony Filer's on Tuesdays and on Saturdays. These are all 9 to 11, by the way. But Tony is also doing Christmas Day this year, so well done to Tony. I'll be listening in just because, TV's crap on Christmas Day, innit? But Tony's is always good value anyway, because he's a brilliant show. Actually, one of my idols at the moment of how to do a show. So there you go. That's enough brown nosing. Wednesday we've got Paul Giovanni, as he's going by these days, of his Critical Mass programme. I miss Wednesdays actually, which I'm a bit gutted about. But I wouldn't mind actually. I might go on Paul's on Wednesday if you'll have me to do do a bit of a roundup, because I'm assuming that next week's going to be the last one of the year, unless he's doing one just before New Year's. So yeah, Critical Mass, anything to do with society, anything to do with those in charge, those that wield the power, and how to get your own back on them. We've had stuff on there in the past about the lawful bank, etc. So always worth a listen, always very interesting, always has good guests on, like myself. The Ritman on Thursday, always on 9 to 11 as well. Obviously, any listeners to Manchester Radio Online will know what the Ritman's all about. Always good stories, good political discussion, and great unsigned bands. And then if you actually go onto the website, Manchester Radio Online, and look at our show, The Watershed, 9 to 11, a very, very dodgy looking character there. I would like to say that's not me. It's a pretty awful picture. But let's just say that's the Ritman. Obviously, him and Stuart Turner being a little bit cruel to me there by putting that one up there. Anyway, that's the schedule for this week. Always worth a listen. I just wanted to now talk very briefly about the history of Christmas. Not that this is scripted at all, so ignore any rustling of paper. But historically, a pagan festival emerged around the first millennium, or within the first millennium, with the birth of Jesus. Whether people believe in the historical Jesus or the religious Jesus. Christmas is celebrated around the world by different faiths and in different ways. In the Middle Ages, Christmas was overshadowed by the Epiphany, which is the 6th of January. Over time, the 25th became more important. William the Conqueror was crowned on that day in 1066. Up until the 16th, 17th century, a lot of what would take place today would occur, such as gift giving, decorations, food and drink. But after the Reformation, which to the uneducated people out there is when we distance ourselves from the Catholic Church, the Puritans spoiled it all a bit. Christmas seems to be falling out of fashion for a while. Because the Puritans said it was an evil Catholic thing, it was popery. So it wasn't really until Charles Dickens brought out Christmas Carol in 1843 that people started to look at it again as a great time, a time of enjoyment, as a festive period. And also, the modern perception of Santa Claus is thanks to Coca-Cola people. In many countries and cultures, Santa would be anything from tall to short, fat to thin, old to young, black to white, sometimes male or female, but a lot of the time he was actually green. And the whole Coca-Cola thing with the white on there is thanks to those Coca-Cola people, which, funnily enough, red and white happens to be, by coincidence, the colours you'll find on a can of Coke. So anyone got any thoughts on Christmas and its foundations and its standings and how it's been manipulated?
Well, I think you've given a good history there of how it has been.
If that was an essay, Brian, what would you mark it?
Sorry?
If that was an essay, what would you mark it?
Well, let's pass that one for the time being. Because I've sort of, for me, I would go back to a Roman pagan feast well before Christ was born,
Yep.
Saturnalia.
Yep.
And it was a week-long period of lawlessness. And apparently December the 17th to the 25th was the time. So 25th then became, of course, the birth of Christ. And there's no way in the New Testament that we have the date for the birth of Christ.
Yep.
It wasn't an issue until later on. But anyway, during this Roman feast of lawlessness, the law courts would be closed. Nobody would be punished. You can commit any crime you wanted.
Okay.
And each community picked what they would call a victim. So the victim would be fed to the point of spewing everything out, pleasure galore, but then on the 25th they'd be bumped off. Okay? And in a sense there was a cleansing. So you were ready for the new year. There was a kind of cleansing going on. So you got away with doing everything during that period. And
I think a lot of people in Manchester over the next 2 weeks will be going along a similar vein.
Everything goes round. What goes round comes round. So, and it took a long time before Christianity, which has taken over all pagan festivals. There's nothing that Christianity created.
Well, may I interject there, Brian? A lot of the events that we have throughout the year,
Yeah.
Obviously Easter
Yeah.
is around the time of the equinox.
Yes.
The Halloween,
Yeah.
which is obviously the day before All Souls Day, is the equinox in the autumn, where we have equal length of day, night, and day and night and day. And then Christmas is normally around the 21st of December, so it's very close.
Yeah.
Is the winter solstice.
Yeah.
And the pagans, we don't do this now, but the pagans also made a big deal of the mid-June, which was the longest day. And that seems to be the only one that hasn't really been passed on to through Christianity. But it does all seem to work with it, so it all seems to merge.
It creates the Christian calendar.
Yeah.
And so what I'm although I'm within the church, but I also am, in a sense, from my experience, I have to talk outside that thing. That it has helped me, but you can be imprisoned by the structure. We have to be released. So any symbol, any structure, if it's worked right, should help us to grow, not imprison us. But as soon as that happens, then I think we lose the whole point of the symbol. And then we have this divide, like Maypole. You know, the Maypole dance was a dance of fertility. And you've got churches who may say, condemn that as pagan and so on. Sexuality is the part of our life. Why deny it? It's God-given, it's enjoyable, it's pleasurable, it's the most awkward kind of... Who would want to do all the things we do if it wasn't for procreation? You know, are you looking shocked?
No, I've said it before, Brian. If you were a religion, I'd be a regular going Christian. Definitely.
What it doesn't do is to deny me my faith.
Yeah.
Because the faith is what's within the symbols. It's the mysteries which lie within that, which releases, for me, the enjoyment of life. This is the present. This is my reality. Whatever happens afterwards, well, who cares? I don't know. I can't control that. But here, I can't even control this because you're controlling me. But to be here in such wonderful company, and, you know, I really do mean that. I'm glad I met Duncan and Clare. Well, I won't speak about you, but you're kind of the hub which you have drawn people, in my experience, my short experience of being on this program since it started.
October.
Yeah.
Don't feed me ego, Brian. The last thing I need is a big
That's
ego.
okay. It's the turkey, you know. Remember the turkey poem? What's it fed for? It won't come back again. But it's for people who are listening, if they can only open their mind to some of the things which have been said this evening. Don't take it as gospel. That's my language again. But be prepared to question it. Be prepared to doubt it. And then move on with your own feed in. You'll start to live.
Well, Dale's emailed in. Dale's saying that he's really enjoying the show, and he's going to be asking Sam, doesn't say whether that's a boy or a girl, not that it matters, to marry him at Christmas Day. Not sure if Sam's listening, but congratulations, well done.
Congratulations.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're enjoying the show. And I wanted to do, if we've got time, I always run out of time, you know, I always put these features in place so that we've always got something in. I never get to do them. But this week's area of Manchester, suggested today by a friend of mine, is Burnage. So we'll be brief. And just go with it. Just go. It's just a feature. You know, you get these throwaway features on radio. It's just one of them, right? Burnage, like Chorlton, Burnage was originally marshland. In a survey from 1320, the area was known as Bronage. There you go. You see, you're fascinated. I can tell you're fascinated. Fast forward to 1894, and George Bernard Shaw referred to Burnage as the prettiest village in Manchester.
Wow.
There you go. Today, it's well known, of course, as the home of Max Beasley, Dave Frank Gallagher Threlfall, and the Gallagher brothers, whatever. And I was going to have an Oasis track lined up, and I've not done that actually.
Yay.
Yeah, well, I don't like Oasis.
No,
I always feel
don't.
like a bit of a,
Yeah,
pardon the pun, I feel like a charlatan
Yeah.
because that's a good joke. I need
Yeah.
put a Christmas cracker. No, but I always feel like I should really like Oasis, but I'm a big fan of lyrics. Lyrics mean a lot to me.
Yeah.
I think the lyrics are absolutely terrible.
If my friend Jerry's listening now, she'll be going absolutely insane with what we're saying because she loves them. I am.
Yeah, but I blame them though. I said this when we did our Derby special. I blame Oasis for this whole "yeah, right there, mate." No one ever spoke like that before.
No, I agree.
No one ever did.
Yeah.
And it really annoys me that Manchester it's become a parody of the Gallagher's. But anyway, that's this week's Areas of Manchester feature. So what we're going to do is you'll have to be very, very quick if you want to send any more emails in. studio@manchesterradioonline.com. That's studio@manchesterradioonline.com. And if anyone does want to ring in, it'll be we've only got 9 minutes left, but 0161 660 0545. We're going to play one track. You hear this all the time at Christmas. One of the only tracks that I actually really do enjoy at Christmas, and it's a shame that I only get to hear it once a year, or for 2 weeks a year, but it's an absolute cracker. We're just going to play the one, and then we're going to do our sicko of the week, and then we're going to say thank you to everyone in the studio. The Pogues with Kirsty MacColl there, Fairy Tale of New York. Right, because I'm such a cheapskate and I don't want to hire anyone, we're doing our usual thing because a load of my shows have actually gone after last week when the station went down because we had these technical difficulties. So, as a cheapskate, I'm going to ask each person in the studio just to say, you're listening to the Watershed show on Manchester Radio Online. Go Duncan.
You're listening to the Watershed on Radio Manchester Online.
Manchester Radio Online.
Oh. Okay, take two. You're listening to the Watershed Radio.
Third time lucky.
Third time, right. It's because I'm trying to read.
Go on.
You're listening to the Watershed on ManchesterRadioOnline.com.
Brilliant. Claire.
You're listening to the Watershed show on Manchester Radio Online.
She sells seashells on the seashore.
Oh, sorry.
Go on. The Watershed show.
It's a bit of a tongue twister. Okay. You're listening to the Oh no. Right. You're listening to the Watershed show. Oh no. Right. You're listening to the Watershed show on Manchester Radio Online.
That's a good one, that. And then Brian.
You're listening to the Watershed show on Manchester Online.
No, Manchester Radio Online.
Okay, you're listening to the Manchester show on... Well, listen, you can't be perfect. You're listening to the Watershed show on Manchester Radio Online.
Brilliant. Well done everyone. Fantastic. Right, this week's Sicko of the Week, I'm going to be quick. This week is Herod, of course. Those that don't know about Herod, you're about to find out very soon. After being told by the 3 wise men, or magi, that the Saviour had been born, Herod was none too pleased. He wanted to find out where Jesus was, pretending he was off to worship him, but in fact he wanted him dead so as not to threaten his position. So the magi were onto him, so they told Joseph to do a runner to Egypt, which saved JC, but Herod decided to have every boy under the age of 2 massacred. So it wasn't that great for them. So there we go, mass genocide, thousands of children dead. Herod is this week's Sicko of the Week. So I wanted to say thank you to everyone. Thank you, Duncan from Survivors Manchester. Thank you, Brian, who couldn't stay till the end. Bryan Melton. Cinderfella, he's on from Monday. Also, thank you to Clare. Clare Edge from the Care Leavers Association. And of course, as usual, Brian Branche, who's always a welcome guest. And I just wanted to give everyone a little thank you, a little token of my appreciation. So just bear with us 1 second. You get a bit of a special one, Brian, because it's your 4th appearance.
Oh.
Right. There we go. Enjoy that.
Oh, thank you.
That's a nice bottle of single malt.
Hey, this is great. This won't be a rum story that I tell you next time. It'll be a whiskey story.
It'll be a whiskey story. Duncan. There you go. You've got a bottle of Carver. Not quite a bottle of single malt, but I'm sure it'll come in handy for you.
It will, thank you.
So, to anyone that's listened, anyone again, we don't try to bring people down. What we're there to help people that are struggling at this time of year. So, Survivors Manchester, the Care Leavers Association, the Samaritans, the Salvation Army. There are plenty of people out there. If you need help, there's no shame in asking for it. And that's one message from tonight's show. That's what we want to leave you with. So have a fantastic Christmas. Have a great New Year. Hope 2012 doesn't bring the end of civilization. It brings some goodness and happiness to us all. So I don't care. Well, I'm going to say it. God bless.
God bless, and it's a change of consciousness, 2012, not the end of the world.
Not the end of the world. So we're going to go straight to this next track. Have a fantastic Christmas. All the best.